22. And tonight, I have some stuff I'm going to be curmudgeonly about, without a doubt. And you're just going to have to sit there and listen. And this one might run a little long. Can't be sure. So sit back and listen, get ready, whatever. Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by, let's see, Cock and Bull, Bitter Lemon, and Strawberry Cough. First topic. I was asked about the contribution that Dave Wesley and the Braunstein campaign had on the ultimately on the creation of Dungeons and Dragons. Well, number one, let me state something that a controversial position I've had for some years, and that is I absolutely allow for the fact that it's possible for parallel development. I absolutely believe that more than one person can have an idea and develop it in such a way that it's very similar to the other. That's why they have patent fights all the time, copyright fights all the time. Having said that, there are so many things that one could call an influence on the creating of, or ingredients in the bouillabaisse that became D&D. Was Braunstein the campaign part of it? Well, obviously, at least in a subconscious fashion, because some of the guys from Minnesota had played it. Obviously. Anybody that reads Playing of the World will see John does a good job, the author does a good job of tracking the development of the game and how it morphed from this to that to whatever. So was it part of it? Oh, I'm certain it was. Would it have come around without it? Highly possible. Something else might have taken its place or done it. Maybe Gary, he had kept several of the old tin castles and forts and stuff from his childhood, because I didn't keep any of mine either. But I mean, it could have come from something like that either. You can't really go back and say any one of those things had a significantly different influence or even more of an influence. Ask any award-winning chef known for their soups and sauces what all the things are. Well, number one, if they tell you what all the ingredients are, they probably have no concept or remembrance of why each one went in. See what I mean? Sure, I'm sure it was. There were people common to both ends of it. So yeah, it probably did have an effect. Would D&D have come forth without it? Highly possible. Hard to say. Can't really answer that. Second gaming question I had to talk to about tonight is the awarding of experience points. Seems the original book said that if you killed a 6-hit die monster, you got X number of hit points. And if you found a gem worth 800 gold pieces, you got 800 hit points for that. Well, I know what the book said, and that was another one of the very early ones that I went my own way on. Again, it was OD&D, and we could go however we wanted. Remember that. And I decided that was silly. Because at the time, the reason I made the decision was because the arbitrariness of the charts and tables. If you were a rigid chart and table follower, there was the occasion when a single harpy was guarding a fortune. I mean, a huge swag of some sort, because the dice conspired to keep making it better and better, and another unit and another piece and another item. And so I wasn't so much about that. I was much more into awarding experience for thinking outside the box solutions, quite frankly, if my group had figured out a way to get around a monster that would have generated 1,200 hit points without having to kill it, but still figured out a workaround and got what it was guarding, or whatever, I was just as likely to give them 1,100 experience points for the workaround, for the thought that went into it, for the successful die rolls that accompanied it. So I awarded experience for doing stuff much more than I awarded experience for finding stuff. Having said that, if a thief found a particularly little likely thing to be found, something it was only like a 20% chance that anybody'd find it to begin with, and he successfully disarms it or knows enough not to, that should be some experience. Because again, remember, experience points lead to levels. Levels are the ability to avoid the fatal blow, the hit points, but experience is also, I've seen this before. Okay. And in my games, if somebody found a particularly tricky door and successfully opened it, then they got some experience for having learned. After all, isn't that what experience is? And the next time they came up on a tricky door, they also had a little edge on maybe figuring it out with just raw dice rolls. So I believe experience should be for thinking outside, thinking around, finding ways to get you want without just killing. And I have also been known to make instant experience points awards for a brilliant idea in the middle of something. Somebody comes up with, oh, hey, a workaround. Not only the points for what they worked around, etc., for coming up with it. Man, take 800 hit points or 800 experience points. 800 hit points. Ooh, that wouldn't work. Good thing I don't know these. And so I would award on the spot, 3,000 experience points. What a great idea. And of course, you have to scale those. You give 3,000 experience points to a first level guy. It's like the skies opened up and the sun beamed down until you're promoted. So, but by the same token, guys at 9th, 10th level, giving him a couple hundred points, unless you know that he's a couple hundred points from going up. Well, then what better way to get him for thinking up something clever? Anyway, that's the way I handle it. Your mileage may vary. Let's see, what else have I got on the list? Okay, let's talk about TotalCon. I had a real good time at TotalCon. Spies flying out there. I just don't like flying anymore. It seems like one of the TSA regulations must be that all airport terminals must maintain a constant humidity of 11%. That way, every mucous membrane in your head dries out. So you're forced to go buy overpriced gum, overpriced candy, or overpriced soft drinks or coffee to keep from drying out and becoming a husk while you sit there during the 2 hours that you're supposed to be there early, according to TSA. Anyway, that ran aside. Got there in good shape, got picked up, taken to the place, taken out to dinner that evening, simple, fun dinner, ate lots of shrimp, and we played a couple of silly pickup games. I learned a new game that evening, something that I'm definitely going to get a copy of so I can play with my great-grands when they're just a little older, called Animals on Board. Real nice, fun family game with strategy. See, what else did I learn while I was there? I think that's the only new game I learned while I was there. I ran the new Wheel of Blame that I'll be running at all the cons I go to this year. And I think I got the finest compliment any player in any of my games has ever given me. The game thing, the Wheel of Blame thing that I'm running is not the super serious, heavy music in the background, lighting, effects, D&D adventures that I used to run that were particularly lethal. I've decided to go for laughs and fun over deaths and dying. And so at the beginning of each of these games, I warned the players. I said, okay, especially those of you that I played with before, and there were many. Those of you that I played with before, this is different. We're going for fun and not real serious stuff. And okay, fine. And so we'd start out, and oh God, did we have fun. The premise of my Wheel of Blame, and I can tell you because there are no spoilers, every player was given a mid-level PC. Well, they could pick them out of the pile. And a index card, and on the index card, they put two things. And I collected all the index cards, and if I had 7 players, I had 14 things. And my job was to work all those things into the adventure as we went. The Wheel of Blame is an homage to Wheel of Fortune, Monty Hall, and Terry Pratchett's Discworld, because it's the ultimate railroad to keep going until you get out. And I never know what they're going to put down on there. This weekend, some of the weirdest stuff. There was only one that was particularly brutal and had dead people at the end. Because the guy that put it down, I figured out, got what he wanted. When he turned me his card upside down, of course, he said, I've always wanted to see one of these in the game. Well, I quickly figured out that his was the one that had the Wand of Wonder. And not knowing what they'd found, and even though they had been led by many clues and indications by yours truly, that this thing that they had was very powerful and probably not to be fooled around with, they unleashed a meteor shower inside the room and killed 4 of the 6 or 7 party members. And by that time, they'd already used up some of their universal antidotes. So I think there were still 2 dead at the end of the party. The compliment came in on the second party I ran. They really did some wild and crazy stuff. One of the guys in the party, and this was an all-male party, at some point had to get to some place that had something bad in between, and they'd run across this like super-duper concentrated shatter pollen nectar that the butterflies just absolutely went crazy for. And so to get from point A to point B without having to go through the middle, he stripped naked, smeared it all over his body, and was immediately covered by a horde of butterflies who in there picked him up and flew him over and whatever. And I mean, some of the most wacko solutions that were come up with, we laughed and laughed and laughed. This particular guy ended up dying 3 times and being brought back. And so they were virtually, literally all alive at the end, sort of. And at the end, I'm doing my, well, I hope, you weren't too disappointed or anything. And that's when he said, and keep in mind that the game started at 1, and he's telling me this at 4. He says, I wouldn't have felt disappointed or cheated if you'd have killed me at 2 o'clock. Well, 2 things ran through my head at that point. Number 1, what a really nice thing to say. Number 2, damn, I could have had another hour for lunch. But anyway, I thought that what a nice thing to say. People did weird things. Just like the old days, certain guys like, all right, yeah, you're the one that does that thing. And they had to, the thief always had to climb the grease poles and all this kind of stuff. We had tons and tons of laughs. It was just a ball. No, you could play in 3 of these in a row, and of course they're not going to come out the same because number 1, I'm going to have different ingredients, and number 2, I'm making up the story on the spot based on the pieces that I'm given. So I loved it. I found it to be like mentally, a little sparring match. Players certainly loved it. We spent an awful lot of time laughing. And to me, that's the perfect game. Some of us knew each other, some of us didn't, all got together, and for several hours, we had a hell of a lot of fun together. And that's why I go to cons, and that's why I play games. Let's see. Well, there were some problems, and I'm going to address those at the same time as I'm going to talk about the topic that I'm saving for the end. Also, ran the dirt track Saturday night. Didn't have nearly as many players as I wanted, but we had a ball. Figured out that about the first lap is the learning curve, how the movement system works, and then just magic and mayhem on the field. I understand that the GaryCon game is already sold out at 12, and there's a waiting list of 5. Well, I can't wait because it's going to be absolutely caged mayhem on the field. We had a lot of fun with that game with only a few players. So oh man, it's going to be a gas. Looking forward to GaryCon. Now, this is for the people coming to GaryCon that have been giving GaryCon and Luke a hard time about the foods and stuff, and I'm really getting annoyed by it. And yeah, I'm getting annoyed by it. I have a stake in this convention. I've helped support this stake from its inception, or this con. I've helped support it. I continually support it. So yeah, I have it. All right, here's the deal. The con has a deal with the lodge that we'll generate so much in tableside service for their food service. Number one, the prices are reasonable. If you went into town to get the same thing, unless you went to a dive, you'd pay more. Number two, the food's good. Number three, all you got to do is put the little placard up, and one of the wait staff people will come by, and they'll ask. They won't interrupt your game or anything. The prices are reasonable. The food's good. We need to make it. Now, I'm hearing, oh, my dietary needs. Now, believe me, if you have a peanut thing, an allergy, you got a gluten issue, you're dealing with Crohn's, nobody is going to bust your chops if you're eating funny rice crackers or something that you brought in your backpack. Nobody. I can assure you of this. We all respect legitimate dietary needs. Now, if you're just a cheap sucker and don't want to spend the prices, well, thanks a lot. Next year, GaryCon will probably cost more. So, okay, there's that consideration there. Like I said, the food's tasty. The service is nice. You can't beat it. You don't have to drive, 10, 15, 20 minutes into one of the places in town. I do. Yeah, I'll go to the back door and get a pizza, or participate in getting a pizza from there because I like to eat it because it's a comfort remembrance food. But come on, quit griping about the drink policy. No, you can't bring in your cooler on wheels with 37 cans of pop in it. You can't bring beer, period, because that, other than the one you're drinking, you're going to get into Wisconsin interesting laws about drinking, and I really don't think you want to go there. But come on, you don't smuggle stuff into the theater. Well, you might put a candy bar in your pocket, but I doubt you got a giant bag of popcorn, and a polypret calf pow size giant jug or something. You're sticking. I don't know where you stick that to smuggle it in. So quit being so cheap. It is what it is. That's how the convention works. I'll be bringing the food. Hell, I could bring 2 coolers up in my vehicle and have all the makings for all the meals I wanted and bring it all from home. But no, I'm going to help support the con too. So knock it off, you guys. Jeez. Whiny. All about tableside food service, which, believe me, every other con I've been to, I'd love to see. As a DM, I'd love somebody to come by. Can I get you anything? Oh yeah, man, I ran out of water or whatever. Can you? And sure, boom, there they are. Same as a player. Player goes, yeah, I'd love to have a whatever. Jeez, you're griping about something that no other con has. Lighten up. Now, my last rant topic for the evening. And by the way, oh yes, we're well into International Grumpy Fuckers Day. So I think this is very appropriate. I like seeing somebody do a study about correlations from certain gene combinations. It seems to me that certain compromises in people's genetic makeup, brain, however you want to visualize it, it's like some people only have enough room, only have a limited space of room. So if they get a whole lot of smarts, they have to push something else out that the rest of us take for granted. And in this case, we'll go with hygiene. I went to my first game convention in 1974. I was only there one long day, but I noticed at the end of that one long day, there was a musky aroma in the area. The next time I went for all 3 days, and I noticed by the night of the second day, it was downright funky. I met Gamer Funk. Here we are, all these years later. All the cosmetic breakthroughs about not sweating, not stinking that we have made in all those years. And yet, some very otherwise brilliant people seem to forget that you got to take a shower once in a while. You got to bathe once in a while. Oh, yeah. And not wearing the same t-shirt all 3 days of the con is also probably another good idea. Come on. And another new thing this year at TotalCon, it wasn't just male gamer funk. There's apparently a small percentage of females that forget hygiene on the weekend. Come on. You got a hotel room. Take a shower. Wipe some of that crap under your arms. Give the rest of us a break. And something new. Again, this isn't so much hygiene, it's self-respect. Now, I'm saying this as a guy that was pretty damn fat before he got cancer. And I know I've lost a lot of weight. So it's not one of those, oh, I'm converted, so now I'm going to be obnoxious until you are. But there's a simple fact. Guys, if you got one of those enormous bellies, Jesus, God, please wear a t-shirt long enough to cover it all up. I don't want to see this much of the bottom of your belly all the way across. Either wear pants that go up higher or shirts that go down lower. Saw it once or twice at Gamehole last fall. Saw it a bunch this weekend. Come on, guys. I know when we're oversized for our size, it's hard to find stuff. But Jesus, you can wear a con t-shirt once a day. Just strip them off and do a marine, what we in the Navy used to call a marine shower. A little squirt under the armpits, a fresh shirt, and you're good for another 8-12 hours. Hygiene. What part of the brain gets unwired to be really smart, nerdy, geeky, which we all are to one degree or another? What part do we sacrifice about hygiene and self-respect? I can't believe I was writing editorials about this 40 years ago. And here I am still writing it, talking it this time. Bizarre. Come on, people coming to Gary Con, bring a deodorant, bring a soap. If you're in a hotel, they give you fresh towels every day. There's no reason to inflict that on the rest of us. 1,500 people, okay, there may actually be a couple, three that have a genetic disorder that are taking medicines for it. Okay, but don't give me a bull about 1,500 gamers and 120 of them stink on Saturday. This is about as curmudgeonly as I have gotten. I don't know if I'm going to do another one of these between now and Gary Con. Probably, because I hope to raise a stink with this one. Bad play on words, I know. However, that's where I'm at right now. Was there anything else on my list? No. I guess that's all I've got. I hope to see you at GaryCon. I hope you're signed up for one of my games. If you are, I can promise you we're going to have a good time. If you're coming to GaryCon, I can almost personally guarantee you're going to have a good time. I have some times during the obvious days that I have free. I can be persuaded to take 2 or 3 people at a time to tour all the old buildings and stuff like that. I've even taken people 11 miles the other way just to show them Delavan where I lived. And, I check on the old house I used to live in. So, hey, if we know each other or you think we'd like to, whatever, at GaryCon, that's the one that I like to be the most approachable. And remember also this, one of those games will be the pie game. I don't know which game yet, but one of them is going to eat a cherry pie with me. On that note, I will say good night.